I've been playing video games for over 30 years, loving a lot of them for different reasons, whether that be for the narrative, playing with friends, level designs, or gameplay mechanics. As a kid, especially in the single digits, I didn't have much of a choice on the games I played, as it mostly came down to what my parents would buy for me and my siblings. Some of it, especially in my early years, was playing games based on cartoons I watched, which sucked most of the time, but when you are a dumb child, you don't know what's good or not. I did play classics like Super Mario Bros. 3 and Sonic, which are still fantastic to this day, but at the time, these were just things that I just enjoyed to pass the time. That is, until one day, my parents got us the first two Donkey Kong Country games. This was 30 years ago, so my memory is incredibly hazy, but I do remember absolutely falling in love with these two. They were unlike anything I saw at the time. I'm not much of a graphics snob, especially today, but I was enchanted seeing the pre-rendered 3D characters and backgrounds, as all the games I played before were just 2D sprites. The animations were so expressive, like it was something out of a cartoon. The way the characters moved, when Donkey Kong or Diddy were near a edge in the first game, or when you hit an enemy, was so lively I was in awe. One of my favourite animations in the trilogy is in Donkey Kong Country 2, where if you didn't touch the tutorial for a few seconds, the characters started moving on their own, with Diddy juggling balls, and Dixie blowing some bubblegum, and then drinking some banana milkshake. I did play Sonic beforehand, who also had an expressive idle animation, but seeing the Kon's idle animations was mind-blowing for a 5-year-old. These animations said so much about each character, with so little dialogue on screen. Donkey Kong was this big youth who really enjoyed bananas and listening to music. Diddy was this young, energetic and loud kid who would get angry if he uses. Dixie was this cool girl rebel who had her occasional outburst, and Tiddy, well, he was a bit baby. Most of the dialogue came from Cranky Kong that died for the series, who's an old and bitter monkey who reminisces on how video games were better back in his day, and how people who liked this game only cared about the graphics. Something that a few people still do to this day. He wasn't much of a good guide in the first game, only giving you tips for the first world, but his grumpy attitude and his meta jokes was something I found endearing. This trilogy screamed at 90s, from the dialogue, the way Diddy drops down the boombox, and Funky Kong's design and personality. The games have that British tongue-in-cheek humour that I absolutely adore, which is something you see in plenty of their games, the developers behind this trilogy. They turned features like fast travel, tutorials, and saving into characters that organically fit into the series world. They didn't just have fast travel, but you were taking an airplane piloted by the gnarly Funky Kong. You weren't just getting tips from a pop-up stream, you were getting insulted by this cranky old ape. And you weren't just saving your progress, you were visited by a pin-up modernist old teacher. UIs didn't fill up the screen, only appearing if you tipped an item or lost a life. There are no health bars in sight, as the cons represent how many hits you can take, and using a specific con probably meant using a specific ability. DK and Tiddy are these heavy powerhouses who could defeat larger enemies that Diddy or Dixie couldn't. Diddy is fast and nimble, who is great for speedrunning, and Dixie had a helicopter spin, gaining more airtime, allowing to gain secrets easier. Easily my favourite character in the series. I still think this is one of the best examples of showing how much health you have while being immersive. Even some games to this day fail to balance between immersion and showing your condition. Looking at you, Red Filters. The presentation and music was something out of this world for me. All three games have amazing music, being some of my all-time favourite video game OSTs ever. GTA 1 has the famous GTA Iron Swing that has become the unofficial main theme of the franchise, appearing in plenty of Donkey Kong titles and Mario spin-offs. Tunes like Aquatic Ambience, Fear Factory, and Life in the Mines are absolute classics. GTA 3's OST is considered the weakest out of the three, but I think for the most part the soundtrack is excellent. Evian Novatevich's music section is a lot more atmospheric compared to David Wise's more catchy tunes. Her tracks were a lot more cinematic inspired, mimicking real life sounds, like for example, the track Cascade Capers, you should hear the sounds of a waterfall in the background. She also contributed to the first game with a great selection from the temple, snow cliffs and treetop levels, while also creating the iconic map theme. While audio quality has come a long way since the 90s, seeing composers able to work on such imitations and recreating environmental sounds on a 16-bit console is truly impressive, and shows that Evian was truly talented. One of my favourite tracks in the series is the water level in Donkey Kong Country 3, titled Waterworld, which perfectly captures the feeling of dread exploring uncharted waters. Still, I don't think anything compares to Donkey Kong Country 2's soundtrack. While Evian didn't start for this one, the music is absolute gold, composed by one of my favourite composers ever, David Wise. All Peaks, No Misses, Minor Melancholy, In a Snowbound Land, Bayou Biddy, Crocodile Cacophony, and Sticker Bus Symphony, I love them all. My absolute favourite has to be Forest Interlude, which plays during the Haunted Forest stages. I would just sometimes lie on my bed and listen to this track on repeat. Every time I listen to this track in particular, I feel like I went back in time to when I was a kid sitting on the floor playing this on my Super Nintendo. Big shout out to Jammin Sam Miller for restoring these soundtracks to a high quality. I highly recommend checking out his channel. DKC2 was also one of the first experiences as a kid that made me terrified, as when I got to the haunted chase level and seeing those giant ghost stations chasing me while cracking with laughter was a nerve-wracking experience. While some of the games I played beforehand were fun, it was this trilogy that made me realise just how much effort was put into level design. Each level in the series usually introduces something new or unique that the player must learn, and it teaches you in such a good way without any mandatory hints. For example, in the DKC3 course called Lightning Lookout, lightning appears that can hit you if you touch it or if you are in water, which makes sense, but being a force of nature, it can kill enemies too, so you can use airborne enemies above you as shields. The red bees now are immune to all attacks, minus explosions, seen in the previous courses, so you can go under them to protect yourself from harm. As we know, the sound of thunder comes before lightning, so the audio lets you predict when you should move out the way, but just like a video game, the lightning bolts aren't random, but appear in a timed session and will always follow you where you are standing, so it's easier to predict. Feels like a rhythm stage like the one in Returns. The first game is a lot more straightforward than its successors, mostly going in a horizontal fashion, but it's the easiest to get into with less things to collect, with only entertaining the bonus rooms counting towards a full completion. This is the one I don't often 100%, as you don't get much besides a pat on the back, but I love going back to this one for how comfort it is to play when I don't feel like doing anything else or to speedrun. DKC 2 and 3 are more expansive as more levels have you going across both the Y and Z axis, while introducing more things to collect that reward you for your curiosity with the Lost Worlds. DKC 3 goes further, focusing more on level exploration and how many things you collect. DKC 2 and 3 feel like the beginning of Rare's obsession of collectathons. Animal bodies become much more than a Yoshi power-up, having some levels designed specifically around them. In a quick countdown, here are my favourites from the worst to the best in the trilogy. At the bottom we have Glimmer and DKC 1 Swartz, who are more so torches that only appear in one level in their respective game, who can blind you when you turn around if you are playing the early versions. Number 11 is Parry, who appears in a couple levels in 3, who can clear items above you. At 10, we have Kappa, who only appears in levels in DKC 2, where he can pour water if you jump on him. He's a seal though, and seals are cute. We have Quartz, aka Purple Swords at number 9, only appearing in one level in 2, who can't attack and can't fly free, but does appear a few times in 3, where he can fly free and can attack enemies by carrying barrels. Winky appears at number 8, who can jump high, but is easily replaced by number 7 Riraki, who has a much goofier design, with some levels specifically designed for him. At 6 we have Espresso, who only appears in DKC 1, who can glide through the air, but is easily replaced by Dipsy in DKC 2. Number 5 I put On Guard, who is the trusty animal who can attack underwater, and the only one if you don't consider DKC 1 Swartz to appear in the entire trilogy. Next I put Ellie, who can throw barrels, but has a couple of my favourite levels in DKC 3, where she can store and see water out of a trunk. Taking the bronze is Adult Swartz, who can fly freely and attack in the air. I usually love flying in video games. Taking the silver is Rambi, who is a lot more straightforward, but rhinos are some of my favourite animals. And winning the gold we have Switter, who has such a cool design with trainers on each gym, and it's really fun to able to create platforms or attack with his webs. Despite some complaints I heard about web woods over the years, it's one of my favourite levels for Twitter alone. While the collectathon side of things became more of a factor with each game, the magic of all 3 games is that you can play anywhere you want. If you want to search for hidden secrets, then you can, but if you want to go as fast as possible, then this trilogy has you covered. It's a similar reason why I love classic Sonic. Both games cater towards both kinds of gamers, and depending on my mood, I would either play it one way or the other. As a kid, I hardly ever finished games, due to how bad I was at them. I think one of the first games I beat was Mario 64, and that wasn't much without a dozen or more so game overs. These games were tough for me as a kid that didn't start on certain levels. For DKC 1, it was the first world in Gorilla Glacier. For DKC 2, it was Toxic Tower, and I think for 3, it was one of the cliff levels. It was years after these games originally came out that I finally beat them. One of my favourite memories was being sick. Now I skipped school one day, so I had the Super Nintendo all to myself, and I began playing DKC 2 from beginning to end. And while I didn't 100% it at the time, I managed to get past Toxic Tower and save DK from the nefarious Captain K. Rool, and I did it all by myself. The credits rolled and I felt so proud of myself. I usually go back and play through these games at least once a year, and even as I've gotten older, there was usually something that I found that was interesting, from the secret sound chest or warp barrel in DKC 2 to changing the bonus theme to a Christmas jingle in DKC 3. Rare usually had such cool Easter eggs in their games. There would usually be a new favourite game, but in the last 10 years or so, I came to the realisation that this is my absolute favourite trilogy ever, and Donkey Kong Country 2 is my favourite game of all time, and I don't think that would be topped ever. I can't pinpoint the exact moment where I knew that gaming became a passion of mine rather than a pastime I just enjoyed, but I do know that these 3 were the cause. I actually wanted to be a game designer because of these games, but even though that wasn't the path I wanted anymore, it was thanks to these 3 games that saved my interest and was one of the reasons why I started this channel in the first place. It doesn't have to be the first game you played, but has there ever been a game that made you fall in love with the medium? I usually come back to these games at least once a year, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon.